Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. This is day 342 of posting chess puzzle every day for a year. This is a game from the London Chess Classic. White is Hans Niemann and black is Mateusz Bartel. And we're going to be starting off with Hans as white, playing bishop takes f7, capturing the pawn that Mateusz just sacrificed. Mateusz continues with queen f6, bishop c4, g5. So Mateusz is building kingside attack. Rook e2, defending the pawn on f2. g4, knight e1. h5, continuing to push, knight f1. Rerouting the knight to e3, where it can go to d5 and control some useful squares. h4, taking up as much space as possible. Queen d1. Hans is retreating his queen to prepare the queen to go to d2. And potentially control the g5 square, since Mateusz wants to jump his knight to g5. Knight e7, Mateusz is preparing to reroute his knight from c6 to g6 and potentially f4, as well as prepare the idea of c6 d5 push. Queen d2, preventing knight g5, queen c6, g3, d5, bishop b3, bishop b6, knight g2, attacking the h4 pawn, forcing h3 now, or knight g6, c takes, e takes d5, c takes d5, d4, Hans strikes at the center. This is a pretty good move. e4, rook a4, Hans is preparing his rook to go to b6, h3, now the king side is completely locked. Hans brings his knight back to e1 to protect the vulnerable square of f3. For example, if knight e3, Mateusz can jump his knight to f3, which will be very, very powerful. Knight e1, queen f7, rook b4, rook c8, bishop c2, bishop f6, queen d1, trying to prepare for knight g5, because of knight g5 now, white is going to take on g5. So bishop d8, attacking the pawn on a5. Hans responds with an attack on the rook on f8 with bishop h6, rook g8, c4, striking at the center once again. Bishop g5, bishop takes, knight takes g5, knight e3. Now Hans actually has a slight advantage here, and with Mateusz's knight sacrifice on h4, the game really heats up. And Hans is actually winning now, since this knight sacrifice is unsound. G takes h4, knight f3 check. The point of knight f3 is that if knight takes f3, there's going to be g takes f3, and after king f1, followed up by either f takes e2, which is sufficient to win, or queen f4, attacking the pawn on h2 and threatening main one on with queen h1. So, Hans can't take, obviously, so he plays king h1. Mateusz sacrifices another knight with knight takes h2. Hans correctly plays c takes d5 before taking the king, the knight on h2. g3, Mateusz ignores the threat on his bishop, and this is crazy. He has already sacrificed 3 minor pieces. g2 check, kind of sacrificing the knight, but if Hans takes it, Mateusz mates with queen h1. So king g1 is forced. King g1 actually would not be a good move. For example, just queen c7 and then knight f3 check would kill white. Hans plays knight 3 takes g2, sacrificing one of his knights in return to Mateusz sacrificing his minor pieces. H takes g2 check, king g1 now, queen f4, preparing knight f3, rook takes e4, queen takes f2 check, sacrificing the queen, king takes f2, g1 equals queen check, king e2, knight f1, trying to prepare knight g3, and now we should probably pause here just to recollect and look at the position. Hans is up 1 full minor piece and 3 pawns. These 2 pawns on e6 and d4 are especially strong, since they are supported by this rook on e4 and are very close to queening and are connected past pawns and are basically unstoppable. So if Hans survives this attack from black, he's completely winning. So Hans plays queen c1. The idea of queen c1 is to play queen h6 checkmate, as well as make a luft for his king via d1, an escape square to escape, well, black's threats. Rook g2 check. Mateusz sacrifices the rook again. If knight takes g2, there is knight g3 check, revealing a discovered attack on white's queen. If king d2, there is just queen takes g2 check, and let's say king e3, there could be just rook takes c2, and black would be winning here. So Hans plays king d1, and now Mateusz makes a crucial mistake that would have allowed Hans to completely dominate the position. Rook c takes c2, sacrificing another one of his rooks. Now please pause the video here and think about what Hans should have done in this position to win. So the first move is queen h6 check, ignoring the rook on c2. We're not going to capture that, it's not important. King g8, and now the quiet move, e7. Not checking the king again, just playing e7, simply pushing our pawn one step closer to being a queen. And it's surprising because black really has nothing he can do here. Rook d2 check could be an idea, but we sacrifice our queen. We just give that up. Rook takes d2 check, and king c1, calmly escaping black's threats. And now e8 equals queen is unstoppable, and the game is just completely over. For example, we could look at a line like, I don't even know what black should play here. The engine is suggesting rook d1 check, sacrificing the rook, and then knight e3 check. However, we're just going to play king d2, calmly attacking the knight on e3. And after, let's say, queen f2, king d3, there are no more good checks for black, and so it is GG. For example, queen f1, we could even take here, but let's just say we don't. Queen f2, we can play king c3, where after queen takes e1 check, king b3, queen d1 check, we play king a2, and we escape the checks. e8 equals queen is unstoppable, and it's GG. We have two rooks for the knight, and we are queening with check. And yeah, so this game is just completely won after queen h6 check. Hans in the game played queen takes c2, sacrificing his queen, and went on to lose the game after knight e3, double check, queen f2, he takes the knight on c2, and Hans could have retained equality with rook takes b7, a calm move and frankly really hard to play in this position. For example, queen f3, king d2 is what the engine suggests, and if queen takes c4, e7. This is really hard to find over the board because you're hanging this rook, you're down so much material, but white pulls through with e7, and this game should be a draw. Hans didn't find this though. He played d5, and after rook, knight takes b4, rook takes, he still had chances to draw. Here he made a crucial mistake though. Rook d3, he should have pushed his pawn to h5, putting more pressure on the king side. For example, if king h6, our king is going to go to f5, f6, and try to promote the pawn. However, Hans slipped up. Rook d3 allowed the black queen to nip this pawn off the board, and Mateusz methodically moved his king to e7 to stop both of the pawns, and after that it was just game over. Here we go, king f6 and king e7. We reach our square. d6 is no longer a threat, and now Mateusz checks, checks, takes, checks, takes, and wins the game easily. Thank you for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this puzzle, and see you in day 343. Have a wonderful night.